Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Schmoofcast. You're joined here with Bret
and Kristen,
and together we are the Schmoofs. We are huge themed entertainment industry nerds sharing over 20 years of experience. We're crazy. We want to share the craziness with you. That's why we're here.
Hopefully you enjoy it.
Today's episode is actually something that we hinted at back in that intro episode, and we're going to do a few of these, hopefully probably more than a few, but discussing Disneyland versus Disney World, things, attractions, shows, rides, food, hotels. And today's topic is going to be one that I think I'm going to concede immediately.
I win.
So today's topic is, what is the better attraction? Or what coast has a better attraction, I should say? Disney World or Disneyland? And that attraction today is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
So if you listen to our other episodes, you know that I am East Coast born and raised, and Kristen is West Coast.
I am a West Coaster. I'm a Disneyland aficionado, if you will, as opposed to your Disney Worlddom.
Yeah. So all these debates that we're going to do of Disney World versus Disneyland, I'm always going to take the Disney World side.
And I'm going to always take the Disneyland side, which is so easy.
On a few things. I think you have me here with Disneyland Pirates, though, but let's go ahead and discuss. Moving forward with any of these discussion topics we're going to do, we're going to deep dive through the entire experience. So, for example, with Pirates, we're going to start before you even arrive into the attraction. We're going to start at that facade.
The facade. So there's two different thought processes on this, and I get both of them. Disneyland's is amazing for what it is. So the facade itself is almost as if nothing is there. So you are going underneath this bridge. There's very little signage, or there's small signage. The queue itself is not
It's
anything.
unremarkable. There's nothing there.
And the facade of the building is literally that it's a building. Like, there's a floor on top of it that is actively used for events and things like that. And it is legitimately a building.
It's boring. It is so boring. It's garbage.
That is part of French Quarter. I disagree because I think that it has an amazing option of blending in with its land.
Whereas over at Walt Disney World, you approach Pirates of the Caribbean.
It is nothing like anything else in Adventureland.
It is just gigantic. It is the bridge between Adventureland and Frontierland. It is a Spanish fort it's a Spanish fort from the outside. And you start walking through this queue, and it is just this massive structure before you even get to the ride. It's impressive from the outside. It's really cool.
It is very large, and unfortunately, most of that largedom that you see is queue line.
But even our queue, like our internal queue, the Disneyland queue, just cattle herders back and forth, and there's really nothing to enjoy. Our queue world.
But the queue at Disneyland isn't meant to be long.
You don't have Fast Pass. I'm sorry.
Well, there's just no extended, when it was built, there was no such thing as extended queuing. It just
we've seen an extended queue all through Northern Square down to the riverbed.
They bring out stanchions. They bring out cords. They bring out more cast members to direct traffic. When they have long line days at Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland, that line will literally stretch most of Northern Square. But it's not meant for that. As opposed to Disney World, which is meant for
those long lines.
We can
accommodate that. And guess what? We can accommodate that inside. Not in the... Well, I guess you don't have sweltering heat and sun out there anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah. California, it doesn't rain. It doesn't have humidity.
But when you enter the building over there, you have... okay, I got you. You see the attraction. You see the end of the attraction.
You do. You get to see the boats as they go by. They have that awesome setup in the middle where they have the parrot and the map. They have, if you look on the walls behind you and kind of around you in that queue area, they have depictions of different pirates throughout history. They used to all be different pirates throughout history, but obviously with the retheming of the attraction to bring the movie into it,
now it's
they've switched them to Barbossa and Sparrow and stuff. But it used to be all of those figures were actual historical pirates.
That's pretty boring. You wander through a fort at Walt Disney World.
I do have to admit, so Disney World has probably, it's hilarious. No one ever knows it's there unless you are with someone that will point it out to you. But when you are going around one of the portions down, if you're looking into this dungeon area, there's 2 skeletons playing chess. And the setup that they have on the board is actually the Dead Man's Game. That's the name of that setup.
So both players, you don't know whose turn it is, but both players, if they were to make any moves, they'd put themselves in checkmate.
Yes.
So neither player can make a move, and it is a dead man's game.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that's a really interesting feature. They do have a lot more opportunity for that at Disney World. I agree. However, I think that the idea of going through a queue and not knowing what you're getting into is more interesting than having yourself punched in the face by a Spanish fort with a pirate and a crow's nest out front.
I just wish that I wish that our fort was if it had higher ceilings inside, because it's meant to like you're going in and out of a fort and inside and outside, and the ceiling's a little just too low to really make that experience feel right. In a few portions.
I mean, it just feels dark.
Yeah, you hit the load area finally, and that's when it kind of opens up, but it still feels very like low ceiling.
I will give one other point to Disney World though, because this bothers me so much at Disneyland. On a sunny day, and you are going through, when you get to Disneyland and you get through the queue and you're at load and you sit down on the boat, your eyes have not adjusted yet to being inside. So suddenly, like, you don't see detail. At least having that really dark queue all inside that Disney World has, it helps your eyes adjust. So by the time you get on the ride, you can appreciate things a bit more.
Yeah, I mean...
That's not a give or take. Like, that's not a huge deal. But for me, as someone who is visually impaired in general, I can't see for anything most of the time. That's an interesting point for me.
I hate how Disneyland loads and unloads at the same time.
Oh, see, but I love that.
I hate sitting down and the sea is still warm.
I mean...
It is the worst.
I guess I haven't really had that problem.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, like, you're over it in a second, but I'm just like, there was somebody else sitting here for 30 minutes right before I got on this. But...
It's the same at Disney World. I don't know how long you think that unload to load is.
It's long enough for it to cool down.
It's like 5 seconds.
I've never got on a toasty seat at Disney World.
I've never... actively remembered getting on the toasty seat either, so I don't know.
No, our Disney World, the boats approach and they are empty, which kind of also adds to
Disney World. You sit in a boat, you're probably going to sit on water instead of it be a warm butt.
You get soaked here. So our story at Disney World actually is very different than Disneyland's. So ours is in real time. Mm-hmm. Disneyland, Walt even said himself, it's time travel.
It is time travel.
So Disney World is not time travel. Disney World is actually, it's in real time. You are going out the back of the Spanish fort to escape, because if you look on the right-hand side of the load area, there's actually a boat in the distance. It's a pirate ship in the distance. And your goal is to get out of the fort and get gone, and you're basically escaping out the back way through the fort before the pirates come, which puts you in our caves and our tunnels and all that.
Disney World or Disneyland does not have that.
No.
Disneyland is it, but this is also something that makes sense when we talk about these facades and why the facade at Disneyland isn't as in your face by any means.
It doesn't need to be.
Doesn't need to be, because it sets things up for you. So the opening scene at Disneyland is you're loading in the bayou. So you're hearing all these things, which 100% makes sense because you've just left New Orleans Square. So going into a bayou makes complete sense. And then as you are starting through that first scene, as opposed to going through the caves and things like that, you're actually traveling along the bayou. You go across Blue Bayou. I don't know how many times I can say that in a single short area.
Do you go across the bayou?
Bayou. Today is also Mardi Gras, so this seems very fitting. But so you do go around where people who are in that time frame would be. So people that are eating at Blue Bayou, they're essentially eating at a terrace restaurant at this grand house. And you're just kind of going by. You see in the distance, there's gators, there's fireflies, there's men playing banjos. And then you kind of go around a corner as if you're like going up a canal. And then it gets darker and darker and darker until you hit the skull. Until you kind of, everything is dark by this point, except for the skull above you, which is doing its whole spiel.
The talking pirate skull. The same thing at World. Before you hit the drop, you have the talking pirate skull.
Makes no sense there.
Well, at Disneyland, I think it makes sense because it's kind
Disneyland, it makes sense because it's literally how you're being transported in time.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pirate heirloom that's like, hey, you want to know where I'm from? Come join me.
Come join.
At Disney World, it's just kind of like
a blinding white light.
Yeah, they added PhotoPass to it, and it's absolute garbage now.
You can't see the rest of the attraction because you're just blinded.
So it's even funnier because our entire, at Disney World, our caves and tunnels and Skeleton Beach and stuff is before our drop. At Disneyland, it doesn't happen until after the second drop?
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, there's 2 drops over there. Go figure.
Yeah, there's a couple drops. And I've gotten less wet on both of Disneyland's drops than I usually get on the one Disney World drop.
I hate the drop of Walt Disney World because it hits the bottom and there's like a shift.
There's a sharp corner at the bottom.
And it slams into the sides and I get nervous every time for some reason. I just hate it. I hate it so much.
It's rough. Disneyland's, they're kind of straightforward. And it goes immediately following. So you go to this talking skull, blah, blah, blah. You drop down your first drop. That takes you into the cave system, which is very similar across both coasts. And then it takes you down that second drop. And that's where you're hitting the Skeleton Beach. It's where you're hitting the Storm Skeleton. This is where things shift a great deal. So the Storm Skeleton and the Skeleton Beach are the same across both coasts. And Disney World, it happens before the drop. Disneyland, it happens after. After that point, Disneyland kicks Disney World's butt for story and sequence and scenes.
I think that our scenes are better over here.
You're such a liar.
The copied scenes. The extra scenes at Disneyland are better. So Disneyland at this point takes you through the misfortunes of pirates and how not to... Don't be a pirate. Don't be mean. Don't be like these guys because this is what happened to them. They all died. They're all cursed.
Yep.
They're...
greed and glutton and...
alcoholism.
But then you go down the tunnel.
You go way through this tunnel and you see all these people. And at this point, like I said, you are time traveling. And a few years ago, they added in a pirate onto that section at the end of it who transforms from being a skeleton to being alive. And it kind of signals that you're back in time instead of being in present day with the skeletons and everything. You're back in time at this point, showing you what the pirates did, that they're now skeletons and cursed for the rest of their beings on Earth. And that's when we regain the comparison between Disney World and Disneyland are back.
So you have all of these scenes, and then you manage to make it where you can...
So I'm going to give a point back here to Disney World, though, because our drop takes you right into Bombardment Bay with Barbossa on the ship fighting the fort. Whereas at the end of this weirdly long tunnel for Disneyland, there's really no... It's a quiet and soft approach to Bombardment Bay. Disney World, they literally drop you into the action, and it's like, hey, guess what? And I think that's a much more exciting approach to that entire area than just randomly, slowly floating to it.
Well, I think that it's interesting because it is a very different way of storytelling, right? So you're 100% correct. Disney World, it drops you in the middle of the action. It very much feels like the ideology, like you were acting out a movie. All right, we hit a slow point.
Yep.
We're going to throw you into it.
And it even helps because that boat that you're seeing, the pirate ship, is the pirate ship you saw in the distance in the first scene, if you notice that.
Disneyland's, I think, is a bit different because of that tunnel. And they changed it from what it was, and now it's back with the rendition of the pirate, where it is kind of this old, wavering voice that's talking to you this whole time as you're going down it, and it has this echoing dead man tell no tales thing going around, and it's very, I don't know the right word to say.
It's haunting.
It's haunting, almost cathartic in the way that you are experiencing it, and it's as if you are going into a hazy dream when you go into Bombardment Bay. So it is a very different idea of storytelling because you've been seeing all these things and they're telling you, this is the curse, this isn't as great as it seems, da, 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 da. It feels a little bit more like you're going through that haze, going through a dream to get to the meat of things. Like when you have really, really vivid dreams, for me it feels a great deal like that. So I think that's both are very apt approaches. I don't know if I would say that I like one more than the other, but they are two very distinct approaches of telling that story within the attraction. I think it's necessary at Disney World because they don't have those filler sequences, as opposed to Disneyland where they have all of these sequences where you see these riches and these amazing things, but obviously skeletons as well. So these people are dead even though they had everything they wanted. And it's kind of that cautionary tale. But from there, they both take you to Bombardment Bay, in which case we again start up with those similarities. Disneyland is better because it has less waterworks. Yeah,
Disneyland has a lot of the outdated equipment. We have the bigger water burst in Bombardment Bay. You're going to get wet.
So we went the other day and we did Pirates, and it was the one day of winter that Florida gets a year. And we're like, no, it'll be fine. Hopefully they turn the water effects off. It's not going to be a big deal.
They did not. Water effects were on.
They were still on. So I have the worst luck when it comes to water rides in any shape or form. So, of course, I get hit right as the burst is going off to my right, and I was soaked and got to leave.
You protected me from the water. I appreciate it.
I did protect you from the water.
Because you got on first, and I was like, excellent, Chris, you're on the right side. This is perfect. I mean, you got on the right.
Things that I don't think about that I should really start to think about when I get on rides.
Absolutely. But, so, in terms of all the scenes that repeat themselves, so from Bombardment Bay, the well scene, the auction scene, the chasing scene, down to the finale singing scene, all of them are very similar across both coasts. For some reason, I think at Disneyland, they are a little more animated. It feels more quaint. They're definitely smaller sets.
Yes, it is. It feels, because it's so much closer to you, it feels a little bit more like it could be a town. It could be, like, obviously, if you're thinking of these towns, it's not as if they're these big, giant, sprawling things. They didn't have, like, the architecture, what with all in the Caribbean islands in order to have a lot of those sequences. Here, it is very grand.
Big, yeah.
Here at Disney World. I would say it's too big. It lets you see a lot of that dead space more. So even though the number of animatronics across the attraction is the same, because of the fact we have so much dead space at Disney World, it makes it less impressive.
It makes a lot of the area feel very dead. Like, I mean, we said dead space 3 times there, but it doesn't feel alive. A lot of it feels just very stagnant and boring. There's not a lot of things filled in those extra spaces.
But that's the beauty of it. A lot of the times people think, oh, we're going to make it, as you're copying something, let's make it bigger. Bigger is better. But for a lot of these sequences, because of the fact that you're only seeing them for seconds, up to a minute maybe, that having it so big, you're only having certain points of focus. And that's what I think works out really well at Disneyland, is the points of focus are so much smaller and they feel like more in place that it makes it a better attraction. again, we could feel that way because of everything that's led up to that point. Because even the previous sequence before you even hit Bombardment Bay, those scenes have the same factor. They're opulent, but they're still small enough. The only sequence that is bigger at Disneyland is the skeleton beach. That is the only sequence or the only scene that is noticeably
physically bigger.
Larger.
It's a gigantic room. It's huge. And then we come around to the jail scene. Mm-hmm. And then our Walt Disney World version abruptly ends with Jack in the treasure room.
Yes, it's very weird.
It's an abrupt ending. It's kind of like, hey, you escaped, you rescued, you helped Jack find the treasure. Excellent, good job, guys, and unload.
Yeah.
No uphill, no nothing. Disneyland continues for another 30 minutes.
It does continue for a bit. So there is a sequence after at Disneyland because again, they just have more scenes. They just have more of them.
Well, the big thing is that at Disney World, you unload without going upstairs. Disneyland, their goal is to get you back upstairs.
Correct, because Walt Disney's thing is, well, if we go down a waterfall, how do we get them off? And, of course, the Imagineering answer is, well, let's have them go up a waterfall.
Yep, because I think he said anything is possible at Disneyland.
Correct. And so that's just a big part of it. I think that's a hilarious little gimmick. But before that, you have the ammunitions room.
You have the building collapsing. And then the ammunitions.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. So the buildings, I was like, yeah, what are you talking about? I was talking about right before going up the waterfall. Cut that, please. Yes. So you're going through and you're seeing kind of the wreckage from this fire. You've got beams that are obviously singed and still burning, like still charcoaling. And then you go into the ammunitions room where you have a bunch of animatronics that's just a bunch of drunk pirates shooting pistols off at each other. And
there's TNT, there's explosives that they are around, and they are just miraculously
drop on the boat.
They're miraculously just missing all their shots. Which is funny in itself because they're all drunk and they're all in weird positions. Like, yeah, something's going to go wrong, but nothing does.
And then from there, you get the going up
the waterfall.
Up the waterfall. And there's different portions in there. Like, they have eyes hidden. You get a little bit more commentary and things like that. But it's a much nicer, drawn out ending.
It's fantastic. But your Jack scene is so small.
Yes.
It doesn't even need to happen. It's just kind of shoehorned in there.
I mean, it does have to happen because of the fact that they put him in there. They have to give him a conclusion.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is what it is. I am not personally a fan of the fact that they put Jack Sparrow into these versions of pirates. I think them expanding the idea of pirates to things like what's going on in Shanghai is awesome. However, I am not a fan of Jack being in either Disney World or Disneyland's.
No, he deserves his own fresh attraction. That's not the Legend of Captain Jack Sparrow, which was at Studios for a short-lived time. Yeah. But then you go up the waterfall, you drop.
And you go up the waterfall, and you're revealed to be back in New Orleans Square. It comes full circle. It explains how you exit in New Orleans Square as opposed to whatever is going on down in the fort. It just makes so much more sense.
Well, because you exit the fort, but then you take the speed ramp up, and all of a sudden you're back in the fort where you started, and it's like, oh. It's so weird. It makes no sense. Yeah. As much as I can try to defend my pirates here at Disney World, there's a certain point where it's like, yeah, Disneyland's is better. There's portions of Disney Worlds, though, that I really think are great, and they're fantastic for what it does. But the overall experience, Disneyland wins, hands down.
Woo!
Yeah, and I hate to say that, but this is a very mean topic to pick, but...
You picked it.
We should do a more balanced topic.
Let us know what you think would be a balanced topic, or let us know what you would like to hear our opinions on versus Disneyland and Disney World.
Yep, obviously Haunted Mansion's on this list down somewhere down here.
Yes.
But then, I mean, I think we might as well just toss on some other weird stuff.
We just love to hear what you guys are interested in listening to.
Yeah.
Not a super plug, but kind of a plug. Please let us know. Leave a comment.
We're here. We read all comments. We're always responding on Twitter or Instagram. But I think that wraps it up for the Pirates of the Caribbean Coast to Coast debate here.
Yay for Disneyland wins!
Yeah, you can take this one. I'll take the Haunted Mansion one when we get to that.
We'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, signing off for the night. This is Bret.
And Kristen.
Thanks for listening.
Make sure to follow us on all social medias at the Schmoofs and follow Bret on his snarky Twitter at Schmoofy. Bye!
Good night.